Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the Board of Directors of the Redevelopment Agency of Salt Lake City. Today is February 13th. Thank you for being here. We thank you if you're joining us through SLC TV, YouTube, Facebook. You also can tune in via Zoom or in person, however manner makes you more comfortable. We start now. We begin the agenda today with comments to the board. I would like to remind that written comments can be sent to the RDA offices via mail, P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114, or you can also send us an email, council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can also call our 24-hour phone line, 801-535-7654. Thank you for joining us, and before we start, we want to remind everyone about our rules of decorum, which are in place to ensure our meetings move along well and help everybody feel safe, no matter what their position or comment is. A copy of those rules are posted in the Zoom link and outside the door if you would like to review those. If you want to make a general comment today, we are accepting comments here in person and via Zoom. Scott Corpany from the council staff will moderate those via Zoom. And if you have any questions about your registration or about other technical issues, please contact the staff. Limit those contacts to the staff since they're handling a lot of other tasks. Taylor Hill here in our council staff will be calling those who has signed up for comment based on their order that we have received those names. If you're on Zoom, please unmute yourself when Taylor calls your name. We will begin now with our comment period. Taylor, please start with the first comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is one person registered for this item. That will be Brandon Jean-Pierre. Brandon, you may now unmute.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Okay. This is my first meeting attended, so I think it's best that I yield my time to comment, just pending to see what else you guys have to say. So you can skip over me.
Thank you.
And we don't have any other registered commenters.
Is there anybody here that wishes to comment to the RDA board? Okay. Sad. So general comments to the board, thank you. Public hearing, there's not public hearing today. On item C is the redevelopment agency business, and the first item is the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the meeting minutes of November 14th, 2023, December 12th, 2023, and January 9th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion by Board Member Dugan and a second by Board Member Lopez Chavez. I'm so sorry. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Item C2, the resolution housing development loan program funding allocation for high opportunity areas. At the table, Allison Rowland, Council Policy Analyst, Tracy Tran, Senior Project Manager, and Danny Waltz from the RDA. Your time.
So, Ian, just refresh your memory or inform your memories. Pull your mic closer.
Also turn it on. Sorry. So as a reminder, in 2017, the board allocated $4.5 million of Housing Development Loan Program, or HDLP, funds for affordable housing projects in what's called high opportunity areas. These areas are neighborhoods in the city where data suggest residents have improved chances at upward economic mobility. For example, places with access to good schools, public transit, and healthcare facilities. The Richmond Flats project, which opened last fall, was awarded $1.8 million of these high opportunity funds in 2019. And $2.7 million remains for these high opportunity area projects at this moment. This year, 2 affordable housing projects located in high opportunity areas applied for funding through the RDA's housing loan program. Together, the projects requested $5.35 million in low-interest loans, and both also applied for the general HDLP, or as RDA is calling it, the competitive HDLP, but we're disagreeing on that topic. So the general HDLP or competitive HDLP funding. The board needs to decide between one application, which is the 515 Tower Conversion Phase 1 at 515 East, 100 South, and a second project, which is Fairmont Heights 2 at 2257 South, 11th East. RDA Finance Committee recommended fully funding the 515 Tower Conversion Phase 1. RDA staff plans to transmit the general HDLP Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA, applications for discussion in the March meeting. So we'll have another discussion in March similar to this, but with a different pool of applicants. So I believe Tracy is going to speak more specifically about the two projects, so I will turn it over to her.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Next slide, please. And just to add a little context to what Allison mentioned, so these high opportunity area funds have been available for quite a while, and because they were open for so long, they were not administered in a competitive manner like our annual competitive housing development loan program that you're used to seeing every year. But just this is unique because these are usually kind of first come, first serve, but we received both of these applications on the exact same day. So they have, in a sense, become competitive. All right, so I can just dive in. Allison gave a great overview. $2.7 million is still available, and in 2023, just in November, the map was updated to reflect newer data and metrics, so this is probably why we're seeing more applicants right now. Next slide, please. And here's a map of the high opportunity areas within the city boundaries. So everything in blue is, can qualify for these funds. Next slide. All the applications are administered through the RDA's Housing Development Loan Program. So all projects are required to meet the Housing Development Loan Program guidelines, which lays out the general requirements, threshold requirements, project priorities, and standard loan terms and conditions. A couple things I wanted to highlight that have been incorporated into the Housing Development Loan Program the last couple years are our annual housing priority threshold requirement and the RDA Sustainable Development Policy. So all projects applying for funds through the Housing Development Loan Program must include either deeply affordable units or affordable family-sized units. So at least 10% of the units must be affordable to those earning 40% AMI and below, or at least 10% of units must have 3 or more bedrooms and shall be affordable to those earning 60% AMI and below. And just a quick highlight, the RDA Sustainable Development Policy requires that projects must meet the following. They must have a design to Energy Star score of 90 or more. The building must also be 100% electric, and they must participate in Salt Lake City's energy benchmarking program. Next slide. The Housing Development Loan Program also has a set of project priorities that the projects can meet. These are used to evaluate projects and provide interest rate reductions. And here are the list of the priorities, and more details can be found within the guidelines, and there's a link within the memo. The priorities in bold are the ones selected by the RDA board as the priorities for fiscal year 23-24. So these are weighted heavier than the others. And you can find the list of priorities that each project meets in the comparison sheet and the summary sheets, which is in attachment A and B of the RDA memo. Next slide. So based on the Housing Development Loan Program guidelines, applications will be evaluated based on the following criteria. 1, alignment with the project priorities. 2, the content and quality of the project narrative. 3, the qualifications and experience of the applicant and development team. 4, the content, effectiveness, and appropriateness of the budget, sources and uses, operating, performance, and related assumptions. 5, the readiness of the project to proceed to construction. And 6, any and all content regarding building and site design. Next slide. So here's a map of the locations of the two projects. The top one is the 515 Tower Conversion Phase 1, and the second one is Fairmont Heights Phase 2, which is in the Sugar House area. Next slide. And just a quick summary of the two applications we received. So the 515 Tower Conversion Phase 1, the developer is the Perpetual Housing Fund. At 515 East, 100 South, they're requesting $2.65 million. Preliminary terms includes, it would be a construction to perm loan with a 2% interest rate, 15-year term and AM with cash flow repayments. There's a total of 96 units with 20 at 40% AMI and below, and 76 between 41 and 60% AMI. And it includes a mix of studios, 1, 3, and 4 bedrooms. And they have priorities met, the weighted points totals 10. One thing to note about the 515 conversion phase 1, this is, so through the city's ARPA funds, the RDA board allocated $10 million to the Perpetual Housing Fund of Utah LLC to purchase this property for an affordable housing development with a tenant wealth building program. So this $10 million will be used for the purchase of this property, and then it would allow PHF to develop additional projects that carry out the goals to provide 1,000 affordable homes that will help families and individuals build wealth. And this is a unique model in which the developer will be contributing their own profits, which they will share with the tenants of the building. This development also applied for funding through the Competitive Housing Development Loan Program, which will be in front of you next month. And the 515 Tower needs a total of the $2.65 million. So if they receive the full amount through this round, they will not need to request the amounts, those funds for next month. The next project, Fairmont Heights 2. This is a project it's Lincoln Avenue Communities. Sorry, that's a typo on there. Located at 2257 South, 1100 East. They're requesting $2.7 million. This is a phase project, so this is the second phase of the project, but they are seeking an acquisition loan that would convert to a construction to perm loan. So they would be buying the entire property and then splitting up into two phases for this project. The acquisition piece would be a short-term 1% interest 2-year term with a balloon payment, or a conversion to the permanent loan. So they would have basically 2 years to meet certain conditions in order to roll the funds into a longer-term construction or perm financing. This one has, and then for the construction to perm, they're seeking a 16-year, 40-year AM with hard repayments. This one has 55 units geared towards seniors. 27 of those would be at 40% AMI and below, and 19 between 41 and 60% AMI. And 9 units between 61 and 80% AMI. And this includes both 1 and 2 bedrooms. And this one scored a 6 in terms of the priorities met. And this one, just a couple things to note. This one also applied for the Housing Development Loan Program, the competitive funds, but they do need both sets of funds in order to buy the property. So this application is for 2.7. Next month, they also applied for $3.2 million for their Fairmont Heights 1. So with the two funds, they would buy the property and then eventually roll it into a longer-term project. Let's see. And so both phases will be located on the same parcel, with phase 1 being built first and phase 2 to follow. And so once the developer is able to obtain tax credits, financing, and building approvals, they would be able to roll into the longer-term financing. If they're not successful at that, they will be required to pay back the loan at the end of the acquisition loan term. And again, this application is seeking funds from both this source and the one that you'll see next month. Next slide.
Is this the same than the previous one? If they get funded fully now, they won't?
No, this one needs both.
Because there's 2 phases? Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then so this was in front of the RDA Finance Committee earlier this month, and the RDA Finance Committee recommended to fund the full $2.65 million request for 515 Tower Conversion Phase 1. A lot of the reasons behind that was because they already had their 9%, and this was ready to go, ready to be built soon. So they would be under construction as soon as May, I believe, if this gets funded. Mm-hmm. Yes. Today, the board may consider approving the funding allocations for high opportunity areas through the Housing Development Loan Program. Right now, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think we do have the developers on the call if there are any specific questions for them.
Board Member Mana?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do have a question.
You unmuted your microphone.
I was still thinking of my question, but
Okay.
I'm ready. So the two projects, the finance committee recommended all of the funding going to one project. Both would qualify though under our terms and conditions. So my question is, I don't know if there's any way to project how these projects can or might perform in the competitive NOFA next month. Is one of them more likely to be successful next month than the other? I don't know if that's something you have an answer for.
And if I could jump in quick before Danny does. The board can delay their decision on these two projects until next month when you see all of them at the same time. That may or may not help you decide between the two of them, but that's a possibility. You get to decide when you approve or not approve the projects.
I guess the way I see this is it's a policy priority that was put in before any of us were on the council except for maybe board member Wharton. Was to create these funds for high opportunity areas. When I look at it, I have I'm really excited about Perpetual Housing Fund and that new model, but I also look at the two areas and I think of the Fairmont Heights project as more what I would traditionally think of as a high opportunity area, just in terms of it's more surrounded by what I would think of as like higher value properties. And the other one's a little closer to downtown. Not that it's not a great neighborhood, it's an excellent neighborhood, but it seems like that might be a little bit more in line with what the board had in mind when they created it. And I don't know, but wouldn't that location have qualified under the old? Would it not have? It would have neither would have qualified under the old map?
Correct. Yeah, the old map, I think it was really outdated data, and the Heart of Sugar House was left out.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
It does seem like maybe perhaps it could be a little bit more in line with what the board at the time when they allocated this money was interested in. Ultimately, I want both projects to succeed, and my concern with putting all the money towards Perpetual Housing Fund, I think for different reasons, I want both of them to happen because they're both unique in what they're offering. One more so based on the location, the other based on the model. And my gut is telling me the Perpetual Housing Fund might be more successful in the competitive NOFA than the Fairmont Heights one. I have no reason to say that other than a gut feeling, and it could be entirely wrong. But if that's true, I would hate to fund the Perpetual Housing Fund and then leave Fairmont Heights without any funding next month or now. If we could fund Fairmont Heights now and Perpetual Housing Fund could be successful in the competitive NOFA. Does that make sense? That's my only hesitation with approving the recommendation now.
Tailing on what you're saying, I would actually be really disappointed if we continued to fund one project by one developer at such high levels. So if we chose to go with this recommendation, I would actually expect to not see Perpetual Housing Fund on the next round, given next month. Yeah, given the level of investment we've already made in them.
Yeah, they don't need it for the next one.
Yeah, so this is my final dip for that project.
Yeah, and if the Perpetual Housing receive this one, they would be pulling their name from the other competitive bid.
Correct.
Right. So I think these are both great projects, and I do like to see. I looked at the Perpetual Housing. It can break ground in May. It's kind of like, we can now see if that's going to work out really well. It's a great project. There's a lot of things there. But I also look at the other one and the mixed income. I like the mixed income. I like the location, as Councilmember Miles mentioned. That weighs on me. But this one needs both of them, and it's for acquisition. And there seems to be a lot more unknowns and strings attached to that project moving forward compared to the perpetual housing. But so I'm at the same point of the quandary now. I want to go back to Allison's point of we could look at these at the same time, even though they're separate funding sources.
Yes.
But we could look at them during the same meeting.
Yes, so the options for today would be to either approve one or the other or both of these projects today, or wait until next month.
And that would be just next month's RDA, and we don't have of course, the competitive side of the house is not there yet, but that is also those are closed already. I mean, we've closed off the application process. Now we're just vetting all the data and the ranking them. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said there were over 20 applications for the competitive NOFA. So there are a lot
Okay.
to choose from, but that's good.
That's good. Okay.
Mano?
Is there any inclination or any indication from either of the applicants on these two projects that next month would make them miss some important deadline?
We can ask them. I think they're online if we wanted to check with them.
Because if not, I would lean towards waiting till next month so we have more information to sort of weigh the two projects. Because again, I want both to be successful, and I don't want to make a decision now that means only one can be successful this year, ultimately.
Are they online?
Tracy, can you identify the?
Yeah, there's Ashley Atkinson is with Perpetual Housing Fund, and Rusty Snow is with
Rusty
Lincoln
is online. Yeah. And we're giving him the microphone, allowing him to turn on his mic right now.
I mean, well, that connects. I feel probably the same way. Granted that I would like to hear from them too, but maybe waiting is the best option. So we have all the information in front of us before making a decision. Oh, Rusty.
Hey, this is Rusty Snow with Lincoln Avenue Communities. Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay. Could you try to speak a little louder?
Yes. Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Great. From our standpoint, in Lincoln Avenues, as it relates to Fairmont Heights, waiting till next month is not an issue. We do have some timelines as it relates to the land contract, but they would fall after that RDA meeting. So we would be fine waiting.
Thank you.
That's the same for us at Perpetual Housing Fund.
I think that answers the question, at least for me, for some of us. I think probably waiting seems like it might be the option that we feel comfortable with at the moment.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to follow up on some of the comments from the board members, just as way of additional background. Vice Chair Mano, in addition to the priorities within the high opportunity funds, I think it's important to note that one of the priorities stated by the board within the program itself is timeliness of projects. And so speaking to your comment about the finance committee and how did these kind of come out as the recommendation as it did, as Tracy indicated, that was a big factor in terms of these funds would be put into play within a matter of months, rather than acquiring the project now and then still waiting a year or two for them to even apply for tax credits, secure that necessary funding, and be under construction. So I think as far as the finance committee as well as staff, I think that's a big factor to take into consideration. Given the concern of how long these funds have already sat waiting for projects, putting in a project that's ready to go is important. Director Petro, in terms of the acquisition funds and putting projects within one project, I think it's important to note that when we allocated the funds for the Perpetual Housing Fund, it was anticipated that those would be used for acquisition of properties. And then as those projects started putting together their funding sources, it was anticipated they would come and seek that longer term financing along with the tax credits. That financing would then take out the acquisition funds so that those could continue to revolve and put into other projects. So I think it's just important to note that that was set up as kind of like a starter fund for acquiring sites and not necessarily looked at as a total contribution. That $10 million will come out of this project and then be used again and again and again. So it shouldn't be looked at as a full $12 million on one project as much as they have done their job of buying the property. They've gotten the tax credits. They've secured the financing for that project. That financing will now pay off that $10 million and will continue to be used again. So it's
legislative session, and it's possible that I have scrambled eggs for brains. So I am not claiming to be performing at my highest here, but I was under the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's a nuance of a term, that our buy-in to the Perpetual Housing Fund was the preservation of the affordability and the renter's equity program.
Yes.
Yes, the way we invested in that program was via acquisition. And the reason is because the ARPA funds had to be spent by a certain date.
Okay.
So the way we participated in that program was governed by the requirements
And just because we participated in the acquisition, then the other elements are guaranteed because of, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
No problem. Happy to provide more background on that prior to the next meeting. And then the last thing, I want to remind the board that in your capacity as council, considering what some of the applications and funding can be for CDBG funds right now, could play into how these funds are utilized within projects as well. So we know that that's something that CAN is working on. Want to put that on the table as well, not necessarily for discussion now, but prior to next month's meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to add that context.
Thank you. Alison, there was a note on the staff report about $50,000 to go to a regular funding balance. Can you explain that for me?
Yes, if you look at the two funding requests, which Tracy may have at hand, one is there would be, if PHF was allocated the amount it requested, $50,000 would be left in the high opportunity funds. The other project, the Lincoln Avenue project, requested the full amount that's in the high opportunity funds right now, so there wouldn't be $50,000 left. It would use all of the high opportunity funds that were allocated in 2017.
Interesting.
And one thing I also want to note, so last year's competitive housing development loan program process, there was a condition in there for two of the projects that if they didn't receive 9% tax credits, they'd have to return those funds. So there are two projects that have to return their funds. So there will be an extra $1.6 million, additional $1.6 million in the competitive funds next month.
Okay, so they're going to the HDLP, or they're going, okay. And those $50,000, we could potentially move them there too. I think that seems right to me, but I think I guess we're probably punting all the questions at the moment.
Right. I mean, the question would be which of the two projects, if the board chooses to do full funding of one or the other project, which of the two it chooses, because that'll determine whether or not the 50,000 is available.
So I believe that there is no action at the moment from the board on this item. So, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Executive Director, announcements, reports, thoughts? Okay. Reports and announcement from the RDA staff?
No updates from us, Mr. No updates from us, Mr. Chair.
There was some on the agenda. Maybe you can quickly.
I think that wording may have been held over from the previous month, actually, now that I'm looking at it, and maybe we just didn't catch it in our agenda review. We'll be more careful about that when we publish. Thanks, sorry.
No problem. Chair and Vice Chair reports? Okay. No written briefings, no consent agenda. We are going to, we need a closed session, so I need someone to do a motion on the terms highlighted there. We're going to convene as a work session from the council. At what time, Madam Chair?
Can we say when we're done so we don't put a timer on us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the conclusion of it. Okay.
Yeah, and then if we need a break, we can call a recess for however long.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter a closed session to discuss strategy sessions discussing the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property and for attorney-client matters.
We might be editing that motion.
I think we clarified, we need acquisition and disposition of property.
So I will modify my motion, Mr. Chair, to discuss the purchase, exchange, and disposition of real property and attorney-client matters.
An acquisition too.
An acquisition, right, acquisition, I think said it. Okay, acquisition, disposition of real property and attorney-client privileges matters.
We understood that motion, I believe so.
Yeah. Holy cow.
I second.
That was hard. That's why Chris always does this.
I have a motion by Board Member Dugan and a second by Board Member Mano. Any questions on the motion? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Board Member Young.
Aye.
Board Member Lopez Chavez.
Aye.
Board Member Petro.
You are an agent of chaos. Aye.
Board Member Wharton.
Aye.
Board Member Mano.
Aye.
I am an aye as well. And
Aye. How about me?
Dugan.
Aye.
See, I did this to myself. This passes unanimously. We are in a closed session now. Thank you.